If you're a big swim team and you like to order a lot of gear, maybe you ought to check out Swim Outlet Team Division for these reasons. Swim teams receive a 10% discount on bulk orders. Swim teams or organizations get an 8% commission on referred sales. You'll also like their customization services, which is affordable and available at all times during the year for all team gear. With over 50,000 items in stock, you can get most anything you want. Swim Outlet Team Division. You need to try it out. You'll be glad you did.
This is the Morning Swim Show for Monday, April 22nd, 2013. I'm your host, Jeff Cummings. We continue our special Masters Monday series of interviews today with Bumpy Jones. Jones had a storied career as a young swimmer competing in the 1951 Pan American Games and the 1952 Olympics, and he's still in the pool, breaking master swimming records at 80 years old, and he joins us now in the Finis Monitor from Sarasota, Florida. Bumpy, it's good to see you. How are you today?
I'm fine, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, happy belated birthday. First of all, you turned 80 a few weeks ago.
Yeah, just at the St. Petersburg meet. It fell right on my birthday.
Yeah, that had to be really good timing. You were able to, your first day of turning 80, setting 7 national records. I mean, was that the goal, or was it just kind of a nice, happy surprise?
Well, no, I was after those records, but I didn't know that how many I was going to get. And there was an awful lot of events at one meet, as you can imagine. But it has turned out very well. But you rarely do that many swims at the same time.
Yeah, I'd swim 7 times in one meet. I'm exhausted, but I would imagine for you, setting the records kind of really helped rejuvenate you.
Well, yeah, it did. But I knew that some of them were going to be a little slower than I wanted to go because I was really pretty tired by the end.
And then just last week you were at the YMCA Nationals and you broke your 1,000 free record, if I'm not mistaken, and then you went and broke the 100 IM national record. So probably pretty pleased with those swims. Yeah,
that was 1,000, which I had just set at St. Pete, and I lowered it a few seconds in Fort Lauderdale. I was pleased with that. The IM was, after all the long delays in rain, and it was an okay swim, but it certainly isn't my best bet.
Well, I guess it gives you motivation for what could be coming up in the future.
Yeah, we've got the regular national championships in Indianapolis in about 3 weeks.
And definitely it'll be indoors, so you don't have to worry about any rain delays.
Yeah, that'll help, won't it?
How long have you been involved in master swimming?
Since the beginning. I missed the very first event, but I was at the very next one, which was the first one that was run by the auspices of the AAU. And so I've been pretty much in it since that point.
Now, master swimming has only been around since the early 1970s, so after you were done with swimming, I would think it was like the mid-1950s, were you still looking for a competitive outlet for yourself, or were you resigned to the fact that, at least for the time being, that there wasn't going to be any place for you to continue swimming?
Well, I swam a little bit after the Olympics after the Olympics in '52. I went on into medical school and took some time in residency. But up in 1960, 8 years later, I again trained for about a month, and took a leave of absence from the hospital to try to make the 60 team. I swam faster in 60 than I had in 52, but everybody else in the world did too. So that I didn't make the team in 60, and following that, I did not swim for a couple of years, but I came back in 1964. I was in the Air Force, and I swam some AAU meets with the local swimmers. There was no master swimming at that early time, but I was still doing a little swimming.
Now, did I just hear you correctly? You trained for a month to try to make the 1960 Olympic team?
That's all the time I had. It wasn't quite enough. But I did. I used to go down and swim some with the Michigan team when I had the little time. And then I thought I had an outside. I actually did swim a good 200. I swam the 200 better then than I had 8 years before. But everybody else in the world was that much faster too. It just wasn't to be. But it was fun to try.
And at the time, obviously, there was no such thing as professional swimming, no opportunities to continue to earn a living, to train full-time, as you fully well knew. How were you able to, kind of keep a roof over your head and maintain this life for this month while you were training?
Well, I really didn't do much training. I had a young family with children, and I had 3 kids at the time, 2 more to follow. And I was a resident in the hospital, so I really didn't have very much free time. And when I left Ann Arbor, I then went to the University of Virginia to finish my residency. And later on, after I was through the Air Force time, I went back to Duke University. And none of these I had no time for swimming in any of these places because I was all tied up with my training.
And when master swimming came around, it probably, all that competitive fire just reignited in you, I'm sure.
Well, I read about the very first swim, and which is just a collection of old-time swimmers. And then by this next swim, we got together, and we started swimming pretty regularly. And remember, the AAU was in charge of master swimming at that time, and there were no world records. World records didn't get started until 1985 or so.
Do you remember the first world record that you set?
Well, as I say, the first one would be the ones they never counted, because from 1973 to 85, they didn't keep track of any records. So the first ones would be early in 1985 when they had became official records at that point.
Well, now that you're 80 years old, I would imagine you're not training the same that you did in the 1980s. Tell us about your weekly training in the pool.
Well, actually, we train harder now than I did in the 80s. Most of the time, I swam in the early years of master swimming. I swam with some of the local high school kids. I actually swam some AAU meets with them when I was about 40. And I had some of my own children around the team. So I swam with them in some of their workouts. And currently now we have our own masters groups, the YMCA Sharks in Sarasota, and we swim every morning. So like this morning, I was there from about 8 till 11 this morning. And these are pretty hard workouts. These are really harder workouts than we really did in the early days of master swimming.
Are you the type of person who enjoys the workout part of being a master swimmer, or is it kind of like I do it just because I know it's going to make me a better swimmer?
No, I enjoy workouts. I really believe that, frankly, if I hadn't stayed in master swimming, I probably wouldn't be still alive today, because I've had some medical problems, and I think were helped a great deal by the fact that I have competed this long. So I think from that point of view, I'm glad I do, and I really enjoy the workouts. Actually, I enjoy workouts more than I enjoy swimming meets. Swimming meets become social gatherings more than meets, and they're very difficult.
What were some of those medical problems that you were having before?
Well, I had prostate cancer a few years ago, about 5 years ago, and then I had radiation and implants from that. And then this past year, I had an episode of pulmonary emboli in my chest, which is a blood clot to the chest. And this went along with the fact that my heart regulator was somewhat irregular, a slight flutter or early fibrillation. So I've had a couple of problems that I had to be ironed out. So other than now taking Coumadin, I'm otherwise pretty healthy, but I will probably be on Coumadin indefinitely.
Well, there's a lot of swimmers say, swimming keeps them probably alive a lot longer than they probably should be.
I think this is true. I think that, frankly, an awful lot of swimmers are simply alive because they are swimming. There's always this great fear that you're going to hurt yourself by swimming, which is conceivable, but I think you hurt yourself more by not swimming. And I think that the people that become complacent and lazy, laid back, simply are missing an awful lot for their own health.
Now, you were a swimmer at the University of Michigan, and as you said, in the 1950s, swam with some great coaches there. Tell me what it was like in that great era with Gus Stager and Matt Mann.
You know, I actually swam with Gus. I was in high school, and he swam at Michigan, and swam in some local meets with him. And then Matt Mann had been my coach from the early days, from high school on. I went to Camp Chicopee, his camp up in northern Canada, as a young teenager, and for several years I was with him. And then I started with him in my early years at Michigan, my first year being 1951. That was the same year that I got picked for the Pan American Games, and so I was with Matt for 3 of my 4 years at Michigan.
So I would imagine it was a great sense of pride for you a few weeks ago when Michigan won their national title.
Yeah, it was a great pride. I was very surprised. I think they did a great job, and I had a chance a couple of years ago to meet the new coach and his staff, and they've got a great pool now. So things are a lot different today than they were in those days, in the old days, but certainly they've done a wonderful job this year.
What would you say has been your biggest accomplishment in your long swimming career?
Well, I think perhaps the first national championship you win is something you always remember. And certainly I was once picked as a finalist for the Sullivan Award back in those early 80s. And that's the award given to the top amateur athlete in the country, all sports. And so that was a big award. And certainly the world record that we now have in Masters swimming is pleasing because it gives you a feeling that you're the first one of that age who has gone that fast, knowing full well within a year or two somebody else will come along and go even faster. There's nothing you can do about that. That's normal.
Yeah, it's what records are there for. They're meant to be broken.
Exactly.
Well, here's something I read. You swam in the prelims of the 800 free relay at the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki. And back then, they didn't give medals to the people who swam only in the prelims. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So has there been any kind of push to kind of, get the IOC to, give you guys the medals like they do now?
Well, there were 2 or 3 Olympics that they did the same thing. They did it in 52. 48 didn't have the problem because they didn't have many swimmers, but 52, 56, and 60, and I don't know any further than that. And they made an attempt this last year correcting this by having all of us who were on that type of relay at the Olympic trials. So this last Olympic trials in Omaha, we went up there and they presented us with a large Olympic flag and made a note that we were one of the groups that didn't receive the medals, that the newer groups in the more recent years have, but they're apparently not able to convince the FINA organization to relieve any other medals. So they won't be coming. But that's, I don't think, really matters to most of us. The fact that we were recognized as part of that winning team is important to us.
Yes, and probably even the memory of being at such a prestigious event at the Olympics, that will always live on.
Right. The biggest drawback I had was that I was an individual medley swimmer in my days in high school in Michigan, and I held the national championship for several years, and that was not an Olympic event. It was hopefully to become one, but it never became one until I was long since retired. And that was the thing that was, to me, the worst thing I had to put up with, because we kept thinking that at any time they would have, excuse me, the individual medley show up in the games, which it eventually did, of course.
Well, like I said, it's always the memories of what you did in the past that continues to make Make you feel great pride in what you did, and it's great that they were able to recognize you at the Olympic trials. It must have been a great feeling to at least get some recognition in front of thousands of fans.
Yeah, they did a nice job with it, and it was a nice presentation, and there's nothing more they can do with that. We really didn't know that I don't think they realized that they had skipped over 2 or 3 Olympic groups before they started awarding them the medals. But it worked out fine, and they did a nice job.
Well, Bumpy, congratulations not just on your recent records, but a great swimming career that continues, and we look forward to seeing how well you do in Indianapolis next month at Nationals.
Good, and thank you for the interview.
My pleasure.
Okay.
So that was Bumpy Jones joining us today in the Finis Monitor on the Morning Swim Show. Be sure to stay with swimmingworld.com for all the latest swimming news and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have not picked up our April issue of swimmingworld.com, you can find our list of the top 12 World Master Swimmers of the year. I'm Jeff Cummings. Thanks for watching.